And we're also going to be taking notes here on today's session. Yeah, Lisa.
So my chat somehow isn't working. I don't know if anybody knows how to, I can see people's chats and I started typing and now it won't let me type. If anyone has a quick idea of what to do.
I do not.
I would say log out and log back in.
To the whole thing.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a problem like that at a meeting recently? A different problem? Oh,
No.
That you had to log back?
I don't want to take people's time, but maybe I will leave the meeting and come back. Bye.
All right. And Olivia, I just made you co-host, which I think will allow you to let people in. Thank you. All right. So welcome. We're calling our group. We still haven't decided on the name, but it's nice to see people gather around trees and think about how we can improve the condition of our urban forest here in the greater Boston area. I know there are people here in Boston and there are people outside of Boston as well. The work of this group is going to focus on Boston proper, but always happy to engage with people outside of Boston as well. So we put together some agendas items here on things that we could talk about today. And how we imagine this session to run. This is work in progress, thinking about how we want to engage and think about building community in this together. And I'm happy to just have this be a really open session today and try to figure out what people want to be talking about and doing in the next couple of months and maybe years, working forward together towards building a healthy urban forest. We have a couple of announcements I'll share with you in a minute, and I'll also offer you an opportunity. And Olivia, if you don't mind actually sharing the link to this document in the chat window, and that way people can populate it with their own comments as we go through this. We've left space in this document for you to add ideas. It will be a shared Google Doc, so if you're sitting at a computer screen, Olivia will give us the link to that, and you can add thoughts and suggestions on the slides coming up. We're going to spend most of our time today just exploring what different topics are that people have shown interest in. They're listed there under item 4, and each of those topics has a slide to itself, and we thought we could just go through those and share ideas, and people could share about what they either by raising their hand or talking, we'll take notes, what their interest is in those topics, or they could just hop around the slides and add notes as they see fit. If you do go around and add your own thoughts, we just ask that you add your name so we know who said what. So with that, I know, is Sarah here, Sarah Freeman? No?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
There you are, Sarah. So you're up. You're first.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure people knew about 2 time-sensitive opportunities for input. One, is a petition put out by the Mass Conservation Voters, a statewide group that has a petition to the state reps to make sure they don't cut funding to DCR right during the pandemic when people are flocking to parks. We know the budget is stressed, but they have an easy petition and the link is should be live, the green one. And the second is the Arbor Way, part of the Emerald Necklace between Jamaica Pond and Forest Hills, has been the subject of planning efforts for many years, but nothing has been, or not much meaningful has been implemented in that complicated stretch. The state has a planning process now and is taking comments till July 10th. So right now, there are no designs. It's just what you like, what you dislike, what you'd like to see. So they're listening now if you have any thoughts about the Arborway. And I know it's getting a lot about transportation, and this group may have special interest in the tree part of the parkway. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So you'll notice that the two links for Sarah's announcements are in the chat window. Feel free to support the work of DCR and provide information on the any feedback you have on the Arborway. And then Olivia just shared a link to this slideshow. You should have edit access to it. So if you want to pull it up, feel free to follow along on your own computer or add announcements. Do we have any other announcements here that people feel like?
Will Sarah take questions?
I think you just asked Sarah a question, so go ahead, Sarah.
Sure, if we have time. Otherwise, I can give my contact information. What's the question?
Hi, Sarah. It's Phil Saunders.
Hey, hi, Phil.
I'm happy to send an email to DCR. But it would be a lot easier for me if you sent us a couple of talking points or something or other, rather than my becoming an expert at it. If you're in favor of it, I'm for it. But, so just I always vote at my party's call and never think of thinking for myself at all. So just maybe you sent me, and maybe David could forward the talking points to other people as well.
I'd be happy to do that, and people may agree or not with what I see as the top priorities, but I'd be happy to share those. Thank you.
Other announcements here on projects or things that people want to raise before we dive into?
David, I don't know if I tuned in late, but I don't know everybody on this group. Could we just say who we are, what organization?
So we've done all that in the chat window, Pat.
Oh,
Just there are so many people here. I feel like
I didn't see that many people. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I've got it.
Yeah. But welcome, Pat. It just feels like it might take the whole meeting.
Yeah.
David, it's Carolyn Reeves. Could I?
Hey, Carolyn, of course.
Mention? Hi, I'm Carolyn Reeves, and I'm not visibly presentable today. I'm sorry, but I am interested, and you'll see in the chat, tomorrow night there will be a meeting presented by the Muddy River Restoration Phase 2 Project Management and Oversight Committee. Basically pushing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer plan for the Phase 2 of the Muddy River Restoration. We have been told that there is going to be significant tree removal due to the need for construction vehicle access in the area. Anybody who's familiar with the Muddy River Restoration Phase 1 in front of Emmanuel College and the Sears building, the old Sears building, will know that during Phase 1, an enormous number of heritage trees were really unnecessarily and devastatingly taken down. So we want people to speak up before Phase 2 to say that's not acceptable in Phase 2. I've put a link for registering for the meeting. My guess is activists and advocates will not have a chance to actually speak at the meeting, but if you register for the meeting, you'll have a chance to put your concerns in. Let's save these trees on the Muddy River. The Emerald Necklace is so important, and we can't have more heritage tree destruction for short-term access reasons. Thank you.
I think you may have, I'm looking now at the chat window. I'm not sure you included the right link here. I'm just checking right now.
It's quite possible, David. I'm so sorry, everybody.
No, it's okay. You included a link to this meeting, which is great. But if you wouldn't mind sharing the other link, and I'll put that here on this announcements page as well.
Okay, so I'm so sorry, everybody, and I'll get that. I'm going to mute myself and hang my head in shame. Thank you.
So many links. So little time. Other announcements? Hi, Jesse. People don't know Jesse. He's an important person to know. Boston is one of the few cities that has a urban forest service employee working in the city. I think one of 6 cities, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so if you don't mind, if there are no more announcements, or if you have announcements and want to populate that window with announcements, slide 3 is yours. I'd like to at least plant a seed on thinking about both a name for this group and what our goals are. We haven't yet, and it's sort of awkward in this space to be able to have these conversations, but I think we haven't yet explicitly defined either one of those things. And I think this is an important component of trying to figure out who we are and what we stand for. We've had a couple of conversations in the past year on what our goal at Speak for the Trees is, and focusing in on Boston proper. And I see people here from Arlington and from Somerville and from other places around the city who are doing really great work as well. Trying to think of what our catchment area is, what our goals are, and then what our name is. So I want to just open it up for conversation. And again, if you're the quiet type and would rather type in notes on this slide, this is available for you as well. And I'll post in the link again.
V, do you want to use the hand raising strategy yet, or save that for later?
Let's see how things go if people just talk.
Okay.
And then if it gets too crazy, we can do the hand raising. Just don't forget to unmute yourself before you talk. Good, just speak up.
Okay, this is Susan Stamps from Arlington. And I think that the motto of our Arlington Tree Committee would best describe the goal of this group for the greater Boston area, which is the protection and preservation of trees in the Boston metropolitan area. Although, of course, I would have to add increase, and to increase the tree canopy. Protection and preservation. Protection, preservation, and increase in the tree canopy in the Metro Boston area.
I would agree with that, and I would add to that a racial justice and economic justice component to that, that the focus is on all communities, particularly communities that have the lowest tree canopy, the least ability to, that are more dense and need more tree canopy. And yeah.
I know as you walk around Arlington, it's very obvious that the nicer the area, that the niceness and the sort of affluent field of an area is directly related to how many trees are in the neighborhood.
Exactly. It's the same all over the city of Boston.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Evan Curis. I'm the program manager for the Boston University Urban Program, and a potential goal for this group I'd like to suggest is a platform for coordination and meeting each other that are especially across different sectors. I'm in the university sector, and I recognize some of your organizations and some of you individually, but I think a chance, especially between universities and community organizations and nonprofits and private sector, a chance, government folks. I know there's some people here from Michelle Wu's office, for example. A way for us to connect with each other that we might not normally be in the same circles organizationally. So I think that could be a real a real value here.
Hi, I'm Celeste Walker. I'm with the Allendale Coalition and the Arboretum Park Conservancy. And I would like to see one of the main goals of the group be the passage of a tree ordinance for trees on private property in the city of Boston. I think everything else starts with that, and not immediately starts with it. Everything else goes forward, but without that, we're doomed, basically, with new developments.
David, this is hi. Just Pam Sana. I just want to second what Celeste just said. I strongly support that as well, and I absolutely agree. Having seen, just in the years in the area I live in Roslindale, because of development, I have seen, I would say, at least 30 trees come down, probably more mature trees. It's a huge issue. It's a big problem.
So we're talking about making sure that when a new development happens, trees aren't cut down, or they don't do a development in a wooded area and have to clear cut the trees.
We're talking about the big oak tree that could be in someone's front yard that would need permission for them to take down if it was a healthy.
So existing properties.
Existing, well, yes, and property on lots that would be developed.
Yeah, and
so it would impact all private property, including homeowners.
I agree with that, and I would like to add to that we should also have an ordinance that says where new development is happening, where there are no trees, tree canopy needs to be added. Like for so many square feet of development, so much tree canopy, not bushes, but trees need to be added around the development. So that plus preventing cutting of trees to build.
So I'm gonna just pause for a minute here because I think these are all wonderful topics and suggestions. And I'm gonna suggest that they actually, looking at what we have here, which is a bunch of slides on specific topics, that they might be fodder for continued conversation and group work and committee work on specifics around that, which I think is an important component of this. And the main intention of this conversation is to think about what areas we want to focus in on. And I recognize, and I have for a while, that ordinances and policy are primary for many people on this call. But I do want to take a step back and pardon the pun, but I want to see the forest for the trees here a little bit. And just curious to hear what maybe some, if we were to have a pithy goal or one line of what it is that we stand for, what might that be? What is the goal of a convention or a convening of a group like this? So, and I think what I heard from Susan is probably the closest approximation to that. And this doesn't have to be the focus of today's conversation, but I would like to at least make sure we're all on at least on a similar, in the same chapter, not on the same page.
Hi, this is Heather from Charles River Watershed Association. I think it might be useful to call out building climate resilience as part of the goal, because we know about the important role trees play in combating heat island effects, flooding, improving water quality. There's just so many benefits that contribute to climate resilience.
I would like to add that we need to educate the public. That's, I think, one important issue. I find that a lot of people don't know the benefits of trees. The whole, you know, that that they stop flooding, that they reduce flooding, that they, something very quick that people can spell out and tell politicians and everybody they know, that tells very quickly what the benefits of trees are for everybody. I think we're very ignorant of that.
Hi, this is Mark Chandler with Earthwatch. I guess getting maybe to David, your forest idea. The two big ideas I think are to coordinate and promote the enhancement of Boston's urban forest.
It's very succinct, Mark. Thank you.
Sorry.
So I think we need to add climate resilience language into this, particularly because that would align with cities, with Boston's stated goals. So it seems like the city has most of a commitment to trees when it regards climate resilience and heat islands and all those things. And I like the policy comments that have been made, and my main thing is to get to require that any development proposal starts with an official tree audit and other natural asset audit of the land parcel and what it abuts, and then any development that is proposed be look at minimizing any reduction or destruction of it.
That's perfect. I think that is so important.
So the question I had based on the comment that was made by the person 2 comments ago was, does this group want to be focused solely on Boston, or does it want to be have a larger focus on the Boston metro area?
And Sarah, would you just present who you are so people have
I'm
some
Sarah
context?
Gerald from Trees Medford. So, and I think I heard the person from Arlington also be interested in more of a metro area focus. And there may be other people who feel that way, but that doesn't mean that Boston shouldn't have its own trees group that, and maybe this is that group, maybe this is not that group.
Yeah, so just for a pause for a minute, I know we have representation from Medford and Arlington here. Are there any other non-Boston towns or cities represented here? Just curious, because I know Somerville has an active one, Watertown has an active one.
Yeah, a lot of the local communities have active tree committees. And maybe, I don't know if Boston has its own tree committee, but I don't think there is anything that's really focused on the metro area related to trees. So I was thinking that this might be that. And if not, then maybe there should be something that is more, that it has a broader focus than an individual community.
This is Mark again. So when I said Boston, I was actually inaccurately implying a greater area. When I think of Boston, I think, and I live outside of Boston, and we work across the whole region. So I think it's yeah, I certainly would endorse thinking of it as a large collaborative. There's a lot to learn across towns and coordinate in that way.
If it's the whole metro area, I think our mission will be the same, but our goals, depending on where we are, might be different. So I don't know how that would work.
And I see Julie Coop is on the line. If you don't know Julie, she runs the Urban Community Forestry Program for the state through DCR, and a great resource, that office, for coordinating and providing educational material. And they have a wonderful stewardship program that they run every year out of Harvard Forest. So if you haven't had a chance to attend that, I don't know if we'll be running this year, but.
Hi, this is Ann Backus from the Harvard School of Public Health. I'd like to see climate resilience include public health.
Yes.
The health of people.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we need to specify it, but I'd like to make sure that that includes public health.
Particularly in environmental justice areas and social justice areas.
Exactly.
So this is Danilo from Codman Square in DC in Dorchester. Maybe I want to suggest about sharing data in general. I think that sometimes it's hard to get data in terms of health, the benefits of trees and canopy and all of that. So maybe if we're going to be working together, sharing data among us, that would be something very useful to do analysis and all of that for all of us.
Okay, so I'm mindful that we have spent half the time on this one initial slide. I would like to welcome us to, I know there's been a lot of talk on policy. I was hoping if you do have a computer that you can log into this document and just add notes as we work through it. I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of these topics. We have, just to refresh your memory, there's one slide on policy and ordinances, another on advocacy and outreach, which could well incorporate issues of education. Boston approved a budget last week that included $500,000 for an urban forestry master plan, which is a really important opportunity for us to hone in on, I think. Equity and environmental justice, I've heard that a lot, which is a critical component. There's issues of preserving heritage trees. There has been talk on how we think about new trees, their planting and stewardship. Specific areas, some of which have been shared with us today, including muddy waters, but also the urban wilds. I know there's a lot of people out there who think about urban infrastructure really broadly, including things like gas leaks. And then there's also a slide here for any other ideas. So I'm happy to have the group lead on, or individuals sort of jump around on this, how we see fit. My hope is that by the end of this meeting, we have clarity, at least again, from a maybe a distant level on what areas here are of most interest to people that we pursue and which ones maybe we want to table. I think there are so many things that we could talk about, but we're limited. This is a volunteer limited resource sort of group. What are the things that we really are committed to think about early on? And Carolyn just added a text here about, might it be possible for someone from Cambridge to come to our next meeting and discuss how they were so successful. We actually have someone here who worked, Deanna's on the call, worked closely on helping Cambridge. She was on the call. You still here, Deanna? Okay, there you are. Who worked closely with the Urban Forestry Master Plan, and Deanna works for Conservation Law Foundation. Yes, we could talk to people. I don't know if this is the time or place, but maybe Deanna, you have thoughts on who we could invite from Cambridge.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just make the distinction that the moratorium that was passed, which is still in effect, is a little bit different than, they have an existing tree protection ordinance that prior to the moratorium being passed was only applicable to development sites and not private property generally. In part of the goal of doing their urban forest master plan was to contemplate what changes, if any, might be made to the ordinance to account for some of the reduction in canopy that they had seen over the past 10 years. Simultaneous to that, there was an effort by the city council to introduce a one-year moratorium with essentially the recognition that they wanted to wait to update the ordinance until they had more information from the urban forest master plan. And so in the meantime, the moratorium would serve as like a stopgap to make sure that trees weren't lost while that process wrapped up. The moratorium was subsequently extended because the urban forest master plan took a little bit longer than we expected. And we now have recommendations for what a revised ordinance might look like, but those have not been introduced or passed yet. So what's still in effect right now in Cambridge is the moratorium, and that's temporary. It will eventually expire, and the city's intention is to then at that point revise the actual ordinance, probably to expand its jurisdiction to all private property in the city, not just development sites. But just to be clear, like that hasn't happened yet. So, you know, I think if you're interested in the process that the city went through to kind of come up with recommendations for the city council of what a revised ordinance would look like, then it would make sense to either talk with somebody on the consultant team, which I was on the consultant team, or somebody from the city, from DPW, who was the project manager for the Urban Forest Master Plan. If you're interested in the process behind the moratorium, you probably want to talk to somebody on Cambridge City Council or somebody from Cambridge's Public Planting Committee, because they were pretty instrumental in lobbying the City Council to pass the moratorium.
I think one of the questions, if I'm not mistaken, is who were the advocates on the ground as well? And that might predate, Deanna, your time. Like,
yep.
I know that Suzanne Labandabar was active. I think Stephen Nutter and Quentin Zandervan were all very active in that early on to, you know, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago, to get the process going with the tree task force. Mm-hmm. That ended up becoming the urban forest master plan process. But I could reach out to some of those activists, and there might be others that I don't know of.
I think somebody might be trying to talk, but they're on mute.
I think you'll be able to locate all the Cambridge activists you need to go through the Public Planting Committee. They know everybody.
Yes.
Yep. Can I say something? So it's interesting, in Arlington, in order to get the first version of our tree bylaw passed, we had to limit it to just tree removals in the course of demolitions, new construction, or construction of additions that would increase the footprint 50% or more. And this ordinance has been in effect for a few years, and we've tweaked it. For example, we used to give contractors the option to plant trees if they're going to remove them versus paying the town. We got rid of the tree planting option because they did a crappy job of planting trees and et cetera. I won't go into the details. But if anybody has any questions about it, they can go to the Arlington Tree Committee's website. There's lots of information. But I will say that I have just introduced the idea as the co-drafter of the tree bylaw a few years ago. I just introduced the idea of expanding it to private property throughout town. And that's considered a really revolutionary idea. So it's going to take some time to get people to get used to it. But I think, you know, a few years ago, the idea of telling contractors what they could do on property regarding trees seemed very revolutionary too. And I think the time has come that we have to seriously look at that. I think that they do that in Somerville now. Isn't that right, everybody? That, like, if you're just a person with a tree on your property, you have to get a permit to take it down. And it's not like you can't take it down, but you can't take it down before you have a very serious conversation with the tree warden, and maybe another solution can be found. I'd be interested in people's thoughts on that concept.
Could I just say a couple of quick things? This is Pam. I think this is a really great example of a lot of people working together to make sure that a heritage tree isn't damaged. Over on Poplar Street, there's a huge old sycamore tree. And so the owner of a two-family got permission to do a huge renovation on the property. And several people were concerned about, even though the tree it's huge, it takes up most of the sidewalk, people were really concerned about damage to the roots. So Michelle Wu happens to live right near the tree. So there was a neighborhood group that got together. Michelle was involved in the process and working with the homeowner. They're making sure that no damage to the root system occurs during the process of this restoration and renovation. So, you know, with people working together, you know, this can happen.
So it's clear to me that there's a lot of interest here around thinking about preservation through ordinances. And I'm going to suggest that one of our action items is to form some type of working group to explore this idea further. We are at Speak for the Trees doing some initial exploration on what other cities are doing across the country, not only focused on the Boston area. And we should have some data out in the coming weeks. If anyone is interested in supporting that, we'd be happy to show you, to include you in that process, but I also am mindful that people might want to explore other avenues, including what Boston's current policy is or what it's been in the past. So I'm going to suggest that if you are interested, we're going to have a poll at the end of this session. If you are interested in pursuing that, you will have a chance to note that in the poll, and we will reach out and connect everyone who's interested in being part of a working group around policy. I don't want that, however, again, pardon the pun, to take up all the oxygen in the room. So I do want to leave some time for some of these other topics that I know are of interest. So we have some comments here from Saba and Anne on issues of health disparities as it relates to urban forest master plan. I'm actually encouraging the city to remove the word master from the plan in a time of that's loaded language, and I think they are mindful of that. So I'm going to call it urban forest plan for now.
That works.
Any other things that people think might be important for us, I encourage you, there's about an urban forestry plan, think about that, or include that on that slide if you have access to that.
David?
Yeah, speak.
Phil Saunders.
Hi, Phil.
Hi. I'm just thinking, having seen a bunch of other organizations operate, that it might give some thought to what the reality is going to be. The reality is that in this kind of business, your agenda, you don't establish your agenda. The rest of the world establishes the agenda. The developers establish the agenda. The policymakers in DCR and elsewhere establish the agenda. In other words, they keep producing stuff that you have to respond to. And I think this organization has enough people, it looks like enough resources, that you might think of it having a two-part mission. One is acting as a resource for people who discover that the tree roots next door are going to be damaged. And I don't think we can fight about every individual tree. However, the reality is that people only get interested in when it's an individual tree. And so maybe this organization could think of itself as a resource to which people could go to, and whoever the contact person would say, no, we're not going to come out and protest for you, but we'll show you how to do it. And the other level is the ordinance policy level, which you have to hammer away at over. It just takes a lot of advocacy over a long period of time. It requires persistence. And I guess my third thought is, I think you need a bumper sticker, trees or tops or something more simple. And then you can have a broader policy statement. I wouldn't try to put them all both in the same thing.
Thank you, Phil. So it looks like we need a witticism a group here.
A witticism group?
Yeah, so a group that can come up with a little social media or media design.
Well, that's beyond my ken.
I like yours. I like yours already. You're the tops. So moving along here, because I do want to be mindful. I don't want to have people with Zoom fatigue. We have here some more comments on, any other comments on urban forestry plan?
I have something. We're also actively involved in locating gas leaks in Arlington. Gas leaks are killing trees, and when we're planting new trees, and so we are filing claims against against National Grid for the loss of trees, number one, and they have paid some claims, and I advise everyone to start doing that because National Grid really is not taking this seriously. And number two, we now have a gas leaks detector that cost us probably about $1,000 that the tree warden tests every planting pit now before a new tree is planted. And I also advise people to do that. And there is a HEAT at Boston University, HEET. Some people might know that organization. They've done a really great job curating information on gas leaks, and they have a map that shows that uses DPU data for on gas leaks. And so I could go on. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. Problem is that National Grid is the regulations. There are efforts in the legislature to pass a bill to revamp the DPU regulations to put a higher priority on gas leaks that are killing trees, and also, of course, emitting methane, which is bad for everyone. Right now, their top priority is gas leaks that, where like a house might blow up, which is completely understandable. That should be number one, but they really don't have any, hardly put any time or effort into the lower level gas leaks that are just killing trees and not yet killing people. So I'll just leave it at that. I just want to alert people that Arlington is very active in that, and there is a regional gas leaks initiative. If you want to, again, email me through the Arlington Tree Committee, or David has my email, or my emails on this group. Be glad to share more information with you. Thank you.
Is there anyone on the call here from HEAT or from the Gas Leaks Allies?
Yeah.
I know they're very active in this area.
Yeah.
There have been campaigns in all sorts of municipalities. In Brookline a couple of years ago, there was one with the, what do they call them? They have little signs that they put in front of dying trees.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful resource. And the heat map, thank you for sharing that. I know that Bob Ackley is active in this area, as is Nathan Phillips at BU.
Yeah.
And quite a few others. So
can I just ask, I'm a little confused. Are we talking about issues in our specific communities now? Because that's what it sounds like.
That's a good question, Pat. I think I think some of these issues are pretty universal because I know that gas leaks kill trees in Boston as well as in Arlington. So I think, like someone said, we have a lot to learn from each other, and it sounds like Susan's suggesting that what they've done in Arlington has made gas leaks more of an issue, they've been more proactive about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we're doing in Boston related to gas leaks and trees that's proactive. I don't know if Greg's on the call, if he could speak to that, the tree warden. I know he said he had RSVP'd, or if he owns a gas leak meter. We at Speak for the Trees don't, and it would be interesting to think about the relationship between our tree mapping inventory, for example, and gas leaks as they've been mapped out. But it doesn't sound like Boston is as far along as Arlington is in this issue. So I'm going to leave this document open, and I do want to, if you have other ideas, Saba's writing some notes. I would like us to think through in the remaining time what might be some ways forward. There had been 42 people who RSVP'd. It looks like there are about 30 people on the call right now, which is wonderful. How do we keep this momentum going? What might be some discrete action items we can take? And that's the last slide here. So I do want to think of how do we not lose the momentum?
Hi, this is Evan again, and to maybe partially answer that question, shortly when the pandemic started in Massachusetts in March and April, May, David and I started a conversation series called Keeping Curious, Talking Trees. And it was, many of you participated and have, or came as viewers. And we found this was a really great way to talk about specific topics relevant for the urban forest and environmental justice, such as gas leaks, urban heat islands, education. And so as the next step, I wonder if how a series like this could continue to meet the needs of this group. There's a lot of interest in hearing, kind of case studies, like Cambridge's forest plan or with gas leaks in Arlington, and if and how we can use this kind of platformer method that we've started with the Keeping Curious series to keep the conversation going that way, and kind of like a case study approach. How we've organized it so far is pairing researchers and practitioners to talk about these topics. And so, I could imagine a pivot to more a case study approach, but that type of thing to keep the momentum and conversation and learning going could be an easy next step, especially while most of us are at home, and Zoom meetings and webinars are kind of the norm. So I'll pause there, having put that out.
So I just put a link there to our website where you can see a review of the Keeping Curious series. And there's also a link there to the 5 or 6 seminars that we ran, which were really great. And thank you, Evan, for being such an important partner and really bringing that together so nicely as we were all scrambling to figure out ways to stay engaged during the early days of the pandemic. I'm going to suggest something that I've been dancing around. I really feel like there is great opportunity here for meaningful continued conversation in smaller committee groups. I encourage you all, and I'm going to post the poll right now, to consider what it might be you're interested in, both to Evan's point in hearing about, but also if you want the question 1 and 2 have the same topics, but they're different questions. So what are you more interested in hearing about? And then what are you interested in working on, either on a committee or leading a committee? I think there's a lot to do. And there might be other topics here that we missed that you have expertise or interest or networks in that would also be good. And we are happy to put people in touch and convene and offer resources to support it. But I feel strongly that this work becomes more effective if it comes from people on the ground connecting and doing the work. So if you take a moment to reflect on those topics, and maybe you want to hear more about one thing, but you want to be active in something else, that's fine. You can select multiple things. If you want to lead a committee, feel free to jot your name on that last slide with your email address and people can reach out to you. And then should we meet? What are we going to meet about? These are strange times. Does anybody else want to lead this?
David, I have a slightly different take on this.
Yeah, Phil.
Which is an addition to, in the sense that I never heard of this group before I got an email from Deb Pasternak at Sierra Club. And so I thought I would check in and see what you guys are all about. And the simple answer is a lot, and it's very good stuff. My specific interest was that Sarah Freeman and I have spent pushing a couple of decades trying to get some park protection legislation through the legislature. And since these, and I looked at this and said, these trees need somewhere to go. So I'm interested in trees, and one of the reasons we're trying to push this legislation is so trees have a place to grow. Maybe I ought to see what this group is all about, because we ought to have something in common. And it's the way I look at this group as something not that I would take an active role in, because my plate is already full, but that you guys would be a resource when we were trying to bring pressure on the legislature on a particular point, a particular time. And this kind of thing is not ongoing. It's just every few months or every so often, you got to contact somebody. And on the other side, we could be a resource when you're trying to do something specific. So it struck me, from my point of view, there's an opportunity for collaboration beyond the group without having somebody mess with what you're trying to do locally.
For me, this is a little confusing. I don't know everyone who's on the group. I don't even know, because I don't have a list of whose names and from where. And I just have a feeling like we all have, like I said earlier, we all have the same overall mission, but I think we're all focusing on different projects and different specific issues. I feel like, where we are in Southwest Boston and along the Fairmont Corridor, we have so much work, so many things that we're trying to do. I don't know how well that relates to other parts of Boston and other towns near Boston. So it feels a little bit too big to feel like, I feel like I'd either rather focus on groups that are working locally on the same stuff, or focus, like you were saying in the survey, on one issue that might be a statewide issue that we could all work on together. Right now, it just feels like there's lots of people from lots of places doing lots of things, and it's hard to kind of wrap your hands around it, so to speak.
This is Carolyn Reeves. I agree with what Patricia is saying. I think it's a terrific point, but I do, not to be too trendy, but I believe in the idea of amplification.
Yeah.
And I think what Phil was saying about, that we have many voices that speak for the trees as a group. And so, for example, I need a lot of people to speak up for my cause, and the more people who speak, ears are going to start listening. So this is a group that I feel is a really great opportunity for exactly that amplification of the trees' voices. And that it doesn't matter what your real concern is specifically, your real concern for the trees can be heard across neighborhoods.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. I totally agree with you. Right now, this is Yvonne Lallier, by the way. Right now, my neighborhood, for example, is facing the destruction of a canopy on Maniacast Boulevard. This has gone on for years, that we have been fighting with the city, now the state, to stop this project that is just horrible. And I feel alone. I mean, this is a very small group, and I'm so glad that you are all in this group and that you can help us, because I think we need the help of many, many people, not just the neighborhood, especially in my neighborhood where it's a low-income, Black and immigrant neighborhood where the voices are, I don't know, have been muffled for so long that people have lost, let's say, they have lost courage. When I talk to people, they say, well, they're going to do what they always do. They take, they've done it before. They're going to do it again. Just go through the neighborhood and destroy everything without the input from the neighborhood. And so this is a great opportunity for all of you to help us. We need to send notices to write to the legislation and to the governor, to the mayor, and insist that this project be stopped. Anyway.
If I could just make a suggestion, I think some of what I'm hearing is that people are worried that a group like this would not be able to kind of meaningfully weigh in on ad hoc or individual projects in various neighborhoods, or that there wouldn't be consensus around various projects or the bandwidth to be able to do that. And that you'd rather kind of coalesce around some city or statewide policy. I think to the extent that a lot of the projects that people are fighting in individual neighborhoods could be supported by a piece of statewide legislation or a city policy like a tree protection ordinance, I think that it might be easier to kind of coalesce as a group around those things, knowing that in the short term, it might not address all of the immediate projects that people are worried about, but long term, it would kind of negate, the necessity for people to come together like this and gripe about individual projects, because we would have some type of larger umbrella protection. And we in the city of Boston formed a very similar coalition to this around wetlands protection, which was able to successfully get the wetlands bylaw passed last year. So I think that was a really successful model, and that could be something that this group does. The other thing that I just want to throw out there for consideration, to the extent that people are thinking about those types of policy advocacy, particularly around a city of Boston ordinance, the city passed, I think it was either a year ago or 2 years ago, some pretty significant regulations related to lobbying in the city. And they set a very low threshold for what they consider to be lobbying in a fairly broad definition, and you are technically required to register with the city of Boston if you're engaging in those types of activities, and you can be fined for violating that. So I just want to throw that out there, that's something that, I know my organization is hyper aware of, and a lot of people are not aware that those more recent regulations were passed. So if you are engaging in what the city would consider to be lobbying, a fair amount, you might want to just be aware of that.
Excuse me, this is Susan Stamps again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just really quickly, I think the question was, I think David asked the question, do we have can we be useful? Or is there some point to having an organization that's this loose coalition of on the ground activists in the greater Boston area? And I'm thinking absolutely, because if you think about who are the organizations that on a wider level are advocating for trees, you have the Mass Association of Tree Wardens. So the tree wardens have an organization. You have the Mass Municipal Organization, whatever that is, of town managers, town administrators. They're into trees. That's on, so they're sort of represent the governmental level. You have the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, which again is conservation commissions, government level. You have then the regular nonprofits, Mass Audubon, Sierra Club, and so on. I am not aware that there is a coalition, and then you have the gas leaks focused Gas Allies people. I am not aware of a coalition of local tree activists in the greater Boston area. And I think, like the people on this call, and I think that it's an incredibly valuable resource for all of us. I certainly, speaking for myself, get inspiration and ideas from hearing what people are doing and thinking about in other areas of the greater Boston area. And I do agree with somebody else who spoke that we also can provide mutual support. And when that woman talking about the Melinda Cass Boulevard project needs help, well, maybe there is something we can do. Maybe we can talk to our state rep, who can talk to the state rep for that area, and help in that way and other ways too. So I think it would be an awesome mutual support group, and very much a reason to keep it going.
Just so you know, there is, Massachusetts has one of the strongest public shade tree acts in the country. If you're not familiar with it, it's Chapter 87. And to Deanna's point, I think there is room for improvement in that. And actually, my representative here in Watertown, Rep. Hecht, for the past 3 sessions has introduced legislation with backing from the Mass Tree Wardens Association and the Mass Municipal Union, I think it was. I can't remember which it was. And like many things that aren't a priority, it gets lost in committee. And unfortunately, he was going to introduce it again this session, of course, with COVID-19. That never happened, and he is retiring. So what he has is really good. It hasn't been updated, that law, and I believe 50 years or so. It still has lines in about it, about damage done to a tree due to a horse and buggy, right? There are certain things that no one's in disagreement about. It's just a matter, again, of amplifying it and making sure that that our local elected officials know about it and that we care about it. And that requires not only coalitions, to Deanna's point, here in Boston, but also across the state, because it's a statewide law. So there are many ways for us to approach it. I have to run. I'm happy to continue leaving this room open for people to continue talking. Olivia is co-host. So if I leave, it will still be open. This document is still open for people to add notes to. We will reach out to you with follow-up items. I thank you for joining and sharing ideas, and I hope we get to see each other soon. Oh, Looks like a lot of people are leaving. I don't know how to leave. I think I have to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
David.
Thank you.
Has everybody answered the poll? Can I end the poll?
Wait, what's the poll?
Um,
The
Duh.
questions about
Sorry.
topics.
the poll is, it's not on your screen.
You're on my screen. Everybody is on my screen. Okay, I'm supposed to be looking at shares at, what am I supposed to be looking at? Oh, polls, right at the bottom. After review, oh, okay, thank you for, yeah, okay, I see it now. There's
Okay.
a thing at the bottom that says polls that you can click on.
Yeah, and I guess you have to answer at least one for every. You have to answer at least one thing for every question for you to be able to submit it.
While people are finishing that up, Olivia, it's Sarah here. Yvonne asked a question about whether we have each other's emails. I don't think we do recently. Maybe an early meeting they were visible, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, of course, we have access to all of those emails, so maybe we'll just send a follow-up email to everyone who attended today. And, that way you'll have access to everybody's email. We won't BCC, we'll just CC, and then you'll have access to those. But I want to make sure everyone's comfortable with their emails being accessible. I assume since everyone's here, we all know each other now.
There are only a handful of us left.
That's true.
Good question.
Well, for the handful, I would second Sarah's request.
Yeah.
Particularly since there are several people on this call who made comments about things that I didn't want to take up time on the call.
Yeah.
But I'd like more detail. I'd like to know what the heck's going on in Molina Cass Boulevard, for instance.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to get an update from you, Yvonne. Sorry, I didn't remember your name before. Yeah, it'd be nice if you could write a little something or other and it gets sent out to the list.
Yes, I will. We're working on a flyer. Olivia is working on it.
Oh, good.
We can share that flyer with everybody.
And I wrote an Arbor Way summary. I sent to Phil because I do have his address. I sent to David, assuming he'd forward it. But Olivia, if you prefer, if we have each other's emails, I can send it as well.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that what might be the best is, we don't want to overwhelm people's inboxes, but I think that maybe like a listserv, a Google group, so that we can be in continued conversation would be nice for everyone. That way.
We never really came up with a name for the group. That was one of the goals. But I think the general consensus was to make it a metro area group, not just Boston. Like it could be Boston area Friends of Urban Forests or something like that.
Yeah, or greater Boston.
Greater Boston Friends of Urban Forest. Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah.
Does everybody else agree with that?
Yeah, Greater Boston sounds good to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people who showed up today are outside of Boston. I would be interested to know what percentage that is.
Well, I think David actually did a poll. He said, I was from Arlington. Somebody was here from Medford. Maybe everybody else was there from Boston, but
Well, I'm not Boston.
Yeah, well, we
Mhm.
want to be inclusive, of course. So I think that Greater Boston would be.
Yeah. I mean, it's only to the better. It's not like, I mean, any tree canopy preservation we can do in Arlington or Medford or Somerville is going to help the city of Boston.
Yeah.
So
Also, you know, I think that this group will serve as a support network, but nobody will be beholden to every project.
exactly.
So I don't think we run the risk of biting off more than we can chew and expanding the group. We only increase the size and strength of our network.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the idea, the one that I came up with, of of communicating with our state rep. We happen to have a fabulous state rep, or state senator, Cindy Friedman, and saying, hey, could you talk to, I don't know who your state senator is, Yvonne.
State senator.
Do you know who it is? Your sound is off.
Well, it's either John Santiago or Ayanna Presley. Those names I know. Ayanna Presley, John Santiago.
Oh, and then there's Sonia.
Sonia.
Yes. Yeah, Santiago is a rep, and Ayanna's
yes.
So the Senate, state Senate could be a couple of people.
Well, this sort of goes to my point, but I don't think we can possibly get involved in every project.
Mm.
But if anybody, for instance, take Yvonne, and I have CRS syndrome, so I don't remember names or anything else. But Yvonne, the Molina Cast was your project?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, if I had been the contact person in this club, the first thing I would have told Yvonne is find out who your state senator is and who your state rep is.
Absolutely.
Before you told me anything else.
Yep.
Get them on board.
Yep.
And I'm not faulting you, Yvonne, but I think it would have helped you people if you had somebody who'd been through this drill before and said, okay, you got to do this, this, this.
Yeah.
You got to talk to your neighbors. Have you got photos of the trees that are going to come out, yada, 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 the whole thing. Yvonne has had to learn the hard way. And and she's done very well. But she inevitably did a lot of wheel spinning getting to where she is now. Am I insulting you, Yvonne?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my vision for this group, is that we could, we could, sort of adopt each other. And like, I completely agree with you, Phil. Like, there are some kind of basic things you need to know to like be an effective community activist. And you've already done an amazing job, Yvonne. I am surprised after hearing your story. It sounds like you've been at it for a while. So I am surprised that you have not reached out to your state.
We have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There is a little group called the Friends of Maniacast Boulevard.
Okay, good.
Which have been active for years.
Okay.
The problem with this group is that I'm not of their view constantly, but they're very knowledgeable. And it's a small group of people who know a lot. But they have been negotiating with the city about the trees and telling them, well, why don't you do this? And then the city has been saying, oh, okay, we'll take care of it. But they haven't. And we're now at the end of the road, and they haven't done anything that we have asked for, that the group has asked for. And finally, they gave the contract to this construction company from New Hampshire. that has is bringing no benefits to the community whatsoever. But we're constantly talking to the reps and the senators and so on, and they don't react. So we're totally baffled, thinking that there must be some money issue here. It's just baffling that there is no reaction from the
Have you threatened to make sure they don't get elected again? And like put the word out to the community what they're not doing to help?
Yeah, no, because you know, the group is really very nice.
Oh, that's what the problem is. People are too nice.
They're very, very, you know, knowledgeable, and now we are going through the legal. We're using the legal process to try to stop the project, but you know, the mayor is not going to be against it because it's their own people. It seems to me that they're all in the game of spending $25 million that we have from the feds. And this is, you know, it's a lot of money that they want to spend. And that's the big motor.
Do you guys have a website or a Facebook group or something?
Yeah, there is a Facebook page, the Friends of Melnia Cass.
Okay.
Boulevard.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yes, please check it.
Yeah.
Spelled MELNEA, not the other way around.
MELNEA, Cass Boulevard.
When the group sends out the next email, Olivia, you might want to say, oh, by the way, in terms of what Yvonne said, you know, that this thing is happening. And
yes,
that's like Dorchester, right?
No,
is it
Lower Roxbury?
Oh, Roxbury.
It's in
Roxbury. And, you know, and give people the link to the Facebook page so that, you know, people who are doing these, addressing these kinds of concerns in their own communities, you know, us, can go to the Facebook page and give these people some encouragement and maybe some ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that would be great. Yes.
I have kind of a late word of wisdom, which, not to discourage Yvonne or anything, but someone in city government who's not in their current job anymore, but years ago told me, if you weigh in on a project, on a particular project, not these statewide issues, if you weigh in early, you're an advocate. If you come in later, you're an adversary. And I think it's kind of a, not to make us all stressed out, but get involved early on, say this is an important thing to us, because once they go down a path, it's very hard to say, wait a minute, we don't like that.
Yeah.
Like they've already kind of gone down that.
Well, we have,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the frustrating part is that we've said all along that we've said this is not right. All along.
When you say they've issued a contract, it's like, ooh,
yeah,
that sounds.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, the city spent thousands of dollars, you know, and gave it to this beautiful company, Howard Stein or something.
Oh, they're the same one doing the ARPA, Howard Stein.
Yes, and they have great, you know, great resources. They produce these beautiful blueprints that nobody can read, full of details, you know, so only engineers can understand what they're saying. You know, it's so impressive. And they've had all these public meetings to which they come with these beautiful presentations and with suits. Yeah. So the people from the neighborhood haven't come to these meetings, you know, very few of them, because you come to the first one and you see, oh my God, you know, there they are. Here they come with a big project. You know, what are we going to say? You know, they already have the whole thing planned out. They're just going to go through it no matter what we say.
Well, but, you know, history is got lots and lots and lots of examples of citizens standing up and saying no and being successful. So
Yeah,
don't
that's what
ever get discouraged.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I'm not discouraged.
Yeah. I gotta go. Great to see everybody. Thanks
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Olivia.
much. Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep the faith,
Bye-bye.
Yvonne. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I hate to cut this short, but my computer's actually gonna die.
Okay.
And look at that, there are only 4 of us left. The
4.
server.
Wow. Okay.
Oh.
Us, it's only
All right. I'll talk to you later, Yvonne.
Bye. Bye. Bye.